All right, so you guys ready?
Mhm.
All right, gonna bump right in here. All right, so welcome back, whoever I'm talking to another episode of the Retrospective Gaming Club. So I'm here with Arlo to my right, and then on the screen is Cabbage. That's what I'm gonna call Cabbage, not Baby. I made that mistake before. It sounds weird. And today we're gonna be talking about Metal Gear Solid. So we already talked about Metal Gear Solid, believe it or not, but we made a mistake, and then the whole thing got deleted, and so now we're going to talk about Metal Gear Solid again, but we're going to change the conversation a little bit so that so it's not like we're trying to repeat ourselves, which actually I don't remember anything that you guys said. I remember little things that you guys said, but not all of it. So we're going to talk about Metal Gear Solid. We're going to talk about all of Metal Gear Solid, but an introduction to the series, why we decided Metal Gear Solid versus Metal Gear 2. For people who don't know, Metal Gear actually existed way back in 1987 when Hideo Kojima created it for Konami, but later in the 90s, he created Metal Gear Solid, basically a soft reboot. Not really a reboot because it's continuing the story of Metal Gear 2, but it kind of rebooted the way the gameplay was, and it was in 3D now, and there was voice acting, which was one of the first video games to have voice acting on the PlayStation 1. And now that we've had a little more time with that game, it'll be cool to look back and kind of ask you guys your opinions on what has kind of changed about your opinions on the game since we've kind of sat on it a little longer now. Because we kind of went right into the podcast right after we beat the game, but I'm excited to talk about it again, I think, because even I've kind of changed some of the things that I was saying, what I said, because I thought back and I was like, wait, actually I like that more than I thought I did. Also, please excuse me, my voice is fucked, so it's going to take me a minute. I can't talk as long as I usually do.
Well, it's good to hear that your voice isn't working, because then we don't have to sit here and listen to you talk about your phone, which is what I sit with the next hour and a half conversation is going to be about.
Yep. They can't even see it, but yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to jump back in. I wish that we still had that data, because I think we had really good conversations. I'm planning to revisit a lot of the key points that I brought up the first time, the things that I liked and things I didn't like. As far as I'll leave the spoiler alerts out.
I don't even think we really need to, as old as the game is.
Yeah, no, I mean spoiler alerts as in how I feel now versus how I felt at that time. We'll get to that when those points come. But
has either of your guys' like opinion changed at all about the game since we first recorded this podcast? I mean, you've sat on it a little longer, so has it changed at all?
I think it's pretty much more of the same. Well, I do have more appreciation for it. There's a little tidbit. I was on like a Twitch game show the other day, and on Friday, and it was like Family Feud style. And one of the questions was like coolest male character, and how they collected the surveys was just giving it to people's like community. So it's like 20 random responses. And out of all the video game characters, number 5 was still Solid Snake. And I was like, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know how old like the survey population is, or if he's like really just still that girl, you know, he's an icon. So I thought that was interesting.
Also, I was just thinking about this. A quick little segue. We didn't really introduce Cabbage. We introduced her the first time.
Oh, right.
And now we're going into like, she's a return guest, but for everybody, she's not. So let's.
True. So yes, Cabbage is a good friend from Twitch. She streams on Twitch, which no shit, I guess. But we've been friends. I don't know how long we've been friends now. I can't remember.
Maybe like a year.
Yeah, and she plays a lot of Valorant, believe it or not. I mean, I actually know nothing about that game still, but she will be linked in the podcast episode as well. I'm going to go back and clean that up so that people are linked in the episode. So if you are interested in more content from, say, Person, then you can go check them out. But yeah, Cabbage is just a good friend, plays a lot of video games. Wanted to have diversity on the podcast in general, just with other people's opinions, because I don't want everybody to just be like, yeah, Metal Gear's great. So that's why we have Cabbage on here, and why we have Arlo, because he's very different than me. You'll see as we play more games together.
Yeah, so going back to what we were just talking about a minute ago. As far as again, I was going to kind of save it for later, but if we're going for it, I'll go for it. So I don't think that I have much of a difference of opinion now. I guess we recorded the first one, maybe 3 months ago? Was it longer than that?
It was before I went to Australia.
Oh
So
my God, please tell me it wasn't longer than that.
it was.
Oh my God.
It was back in
Okay.
September, I think.
Whoa. Okay.
Because I had wait, no, it might have been longer than that. Because I'm telling you, we recorded it and then I left for Indiana, then I went to Australia, and all of that happened in
Christ.
October, November.
Okay. Well, yeah. It's been 6 to 7 years since we recorded the last one that got deleted. So, yeah, in that time, I don't think that I've changed my opinion much. I think I've actually become more validated, because I feel more validated rather, from talking to other people or consuming content now that I was afraid to consume before I played the game. Right. So like now I've got the opportunity to, dig as deep as I want to into content related to Metal Gear Solid without the fear of like spoilers or
Right.
having my opinion swayed, that sort of thing. I actually found that a lot of my opinions are shared again, no one's heard the first episode, so they don't know how I feel about it.
Right, and we're
But
gonna get into it.
we will get into it. Anyway, yeah, I guess we'll see. I think it's going to be more of the same.
Okay. So then, with that being said, let's jump into the first section, which is actually narrative and gameplay, if I remember correctly. Yep. And so we'll talk about the story of Metal Gear Solid, and we'll talk about just the gameplay mechanics and what we like about the gameplay or what we don't like about the gameplay. And I'll start off by saying that I think that the strongest part of Metal Gear Solid, maybe not Metal Gear Solid, but the entire series, is the story. So the narrative is...
No one can see me, but I'm raising my hand. I have things to say.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. We'll get to it. Go ahead.
So I personally think, and you'll see why later. I mean, Metal Gear Solid, not necessarily, but the series in general, once you start to see it all come together, it's a beautiful thing. You can't watch the first Star Wars. Well, you can watch the first Star Wars, but it's a lot better if you watch the first 3 Star Wars. And so with the narrative, I mean, it's a simple narrative. Solid Snake is he shows up on Shadow Moses Island. He's come to investigate basically this thing called Metal Gear. It's the U.S. government has said that it's on Shadow Moses. I mean, I'm even blanking on the story right now. Holy shit! I know this game. I swear to God, I know this game. But yeah, he shows up. Is that a Hind D? You know, all that shit. And I won't spoil the story, but that is pretty much the point. You're on Shadow Moses Island. You're running around. You're trying to find Metal Gear, and you're trying. Oh, that's not the thing. No, it is not. That's not the story. You're trying to rescue the president.
There you go.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of another Metal Gear. But you're trying to find the president. And so there's a bunch of people on Shadow Moses Island. You meet a lot of different characters. And this is talking about gameplay, and this is actually one of the strong points that I was sitting the other night, and I thought about it, and I was like, okay, actually, that's one thing I want to really put an emphasis on with gameplay, is how it feels like a Metroidvania with the gameplay. And it was funny because I read a good article the other day, and it actually made me start thinking, like, the term Metroidvania should probably go away. You know what I mean? Like, that should be a name. They should rename that genre at this point. A lot of people don't even know, like, a lot of younger gamers don't even know what Metroid and Castlevania are. So calling it a Metroidvania, if you said that to a newer gamer, they'd be like, what the hell does that mean?
Metroidvania should just be called tedious.
Did you think so?
I don't know, man. I just personally, the mechanic of like making progress and then having to backtrack on all that progress in order to make more progress is really frustrating for me as a gamer.
Yeah, I mean, I get that.
It's not necessarily me dunking on this game. It's just Metroidvania specifically. That's why I made that joke.
And I think I semi-agree with you in a weird way, because I remember Hollow Knight, not that we're talking about Hollow Knight, but there were times at Hollow Knight I was like, fuck, I got to go back there again?
Yeah.
That's like the 7th time I have to go back there. But I get that that's the point of the game, but still, sometimes it can be frustrating. I think with Metal Gear, I love the music and the characters and all this stuff, so I'm like, I can deal with it. I can go get that fucking bazooka back in the very first area, which might be the worst case of that situation. Going back and getting the bazooka all the way in the first area where you fought Revolver Ocelot.
I almost quit. I think I said the same thing in the first time I recorded this, but
Yeah.
and it was like go all the way back. I was like, you know what? I really don't care that much.
And
I might just play something else. I'll go play Valorant with Kyabetsu.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I was shocked with that too, because like when it said, "Oh, go here," I was like, "Wait, where?" And then someone was like, "Oh, like the very beginning." What do you mean? We just got here. It was so hard to get here.
Which I thought you would love that since you love Metroidvanias, right?
I don't actually. I don't.
You don't? I thought you loved Hollow Knight.
I don't. I played it.
Oh,
begrudgingly,
okay.
so
We're
it's
all on the
more
same
like
boat.
it's more like I'm stubborn about it. So if I start a game, I will want to finish it. But it's like with Hollow Knight, I guess same with Ori. Even though Ori is a beautiful game, it's still a Metroidvania. So I wasn't as fond of that aspect of the games. But
Yeah, no, I actually agree. Yeah, it's not my cup of tea. They released a new Prince of Persia. I really love Prince of Persia, but I don't know if I'm going to play it because it's a Metroidvania.
I mean, I think that platformers work better in the Metroidvania genre, or like type of game, rather than like a 3D not adventure, but like action adventure game.
Yeah.
Like
that's true.
There's something about like I don't really mind as much going through a platformer to get back to a different location.
Yeah.
As I do going through 3D space.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And with the platforming games, usually had like little teleports to make it easier too. Or else
100%.
Right, Metal Gear has no teleport.
You have to walk.
Yeah.
It activates like short, shortcuts, that sort of thing. Like the floor falls out in some locations, so now you can jump straight to it if to the beginning or whatever. Celeste was a fantastic example of that. Like,
Yes.
you get dropped all the way to the bottom of the of that one level, and then you're like, "Fuck, I have to climb the mountain again." But then they give you a new ability to just like fly up to the top of the mountain. It's like, oh, okay, that's just one level where I have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the story, I think it's kind of funny because my main complaint about this game is based around the story, and the fact that we have like completely opposite opinions in that, like, and again, I don't have the rest of the games to have the full story,
Right.
But
right.
at least for Metal Gear Solid, it felt so insanely complicated and like unnecessarily complicated, almost like somebody who has never written a story before, who's like only going off of, I guess their experience watching stuff or whatever, and it felt like they were throwing in every detail that their brain came across instead of filtering it out and making it simple and fluid. So it felt kind of cheesy to me. I know this is the second time I have to break your heart. And
No, I mean, the
just-
cheesy part I agree with. It is cheesy.
Yeah. At the same time, I will give it credit and say that it's actually kind of endearing. Because back then, when did this game come out? 97?
98.
98. So back in 98, right, it was in the early stages of video gaming as a cinematic medium, right?
Yeah.
And I think that Metal Gear Solid is probably actually one of, if not the first game, to truly encompass the idea of cinematography in the game. And everything is shot that way, right? The way that the game starts off, all the video or all the shots look like they're shot in a spy movie.
Yep.
And then the credits are rolling as that happens, right? It's introducing different not different characters, but people who voice characters and the people who worked on the game, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it felt not enveloping, but there was an atmosphere to it, a cinematic atmosphere. And so, like I said, I like the fact that they tried to write it like a movie. I think that they missed the mark, which is okay because they're the first ones to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's why I think it's so important, though, is because without Metal Gear Solid, you really wouldn't have games like Uncharted and Last of Us and stuff like that. They created that kind of storytelling in video games where it's not just a game, but it can be like an actual experience, almost like a movie.
Yeah.
Like cinema. And so I think that kind of started the whole, It's funny because it started on PlayStation. It still goes on PlayStation. That's the main place it happens with Last of Us and Uncharted and all these big open world games like Horizon Zero Dawn,
Call
stuff
of
like that.
Duty.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
Call of Duty. They do have stories in Call of Duty, believe it or not.
Fortnite. Great, just like the examples of great storytelling.
No.
But yeah, so it feels like the game overall, right? There's a serious element in the cinematography feel of the game, but then there's also this kind of goofy meme feel of the game as well, which I can't tell. Obviously, a lot of it is intentional. There are some things that Kojima threw in, and he does that in his games.
Oh yeah,
right?
that's great.
To give the game a little bit of levity, but it made it feel like the story, which is overly complicated, was done overly complicated as a joke almost. And I think that's one of the main complaints that I have about the game. I guess I already said that, but that is my main complaint about the game. And when I go back and I talk to other people about it and try to ask them, it's really funny that you kind of like forgot the storyline.
Yeah.
As I go back and I ask other people who share a similar viewpoint in that the story feels kind of nonsensical, and ask them to tell me what the story was. And they're like, I don't know. Like, all they know is like, I just went in there was a big thing. I fought my twin, but then he is a part of another organization, but there's another organization. The president's part of that one. Now you figure out at the end.
Great.
Okay.
It's great. The thing is like, if you go back and watch an old spy film or an old, like an old James Bond film, there's a lot of weird shit happening in these movies. And I think that's where Kojima was like, I'm just going to go off the rails with this one and take a lot of ideas from a lot of those movies that I loved back in the 1970s, 80s, and put it all in one game. And yeah, you're right. Sometimes it doesn't work. I think sometimes the Metal Gear Solid is just like, what the fuck is a les enfants treblés? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some of it doesn't make sense, but I think, and I won't lie to you, even after wrapping up the entire series, some of it's still not going to make sense. But a lot of it does start to kind of, because I think he planned it as a whole thing, a whole like 4-game trilogy, or not trilogy, but 4 games.
Quadrilogy?
Is that what they say?
I don't know.
But I think that was planned from the beginning. So to get all that weird shit happening in the first game where there's all these subplots and you're like, what's going on? I think that was all planned in the beginning. And of course, just playing the first one, you're like, what the hell? But at least it would probably back in 1998 get you curious to play the next one. Because you'd be like, okay, I got to know what the hell was going on. And so it would continue to go. 5 shouldn't exist. I mean, but that's besides the point. But the original 4 games really tell a full story there that I think you guys will see when we start playing the other ones at some point. That'll another 2 years.
I mean, does it all? I don't know. So we got 2 different opinions here, Cabbage. So you're the tiebreaker.
Regarding the narrative.
Yeah, regarding the narrative.
So I guess I'm somewhere down the middle. I don't have any prior knowledge about Metal Gear at all. For reference, this game is older than me. So it's my first time.
For sure.
Yeah,
I remember that, yeah.
I did like that it played out like a movie. It was just something completely new for me. I guess we'll get to the gameplay later. I like the overall like kind of spy-esque feel. Like we have to go break out the president, we have to save him, blah, blah, blah. That part is fine. I think the part that was kind of glaring for me was the almost forced romance between Snake and the girl. I already forgot her name.
Meryl.
But Meryl, yes. Because I was like, oh, he's saving her because she's related to someone. So, okay, sure, it's another mission. Why are they kissing? They just met. I was like, okay, why? Okay. But that was the only thing that was weird to me. Everything else was fine.
It's funny because I agree with you. And I think that was another where Kojima just took from old James Bond where there's always a romance and like, let's throw that shit in there. I mean, Meryl, she's Campbell's daughter. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that just happened because he just wanted some weird stuff. It's funny because that doesn't really, spoiler alert, that doesn't really continue in the series. That's just Metal Gear Solid.
Oh,
And then you move on, and it's totally something completely different, which is way, way better. You'll see. But it's just, it's funny how that's a romance in there, especially because it is forced.
Mhm.
And I think they even knew that. The developing team knew that. And that's why it doesn't exist in the future.
Well, again, so to give them credit, this was back in '98. It was at the beginning of games as an experience, right? Or not experience. You know what I mean? A story, right? A medium to tell a story and to engage the player as not just a player but as a viewer, right? And so they had to take risks. Some things that they kind of threw the dice on, I think now looking back, were misses, but some things were spot on. And the way that they shot it as the way that they designed it so that it felt like it was a movie
Yeah.
almost the entire time was a really, really cool risk that they took. That was a total hit.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, think about back in the 90s, 98, where the only voice acting you've heard in video games so far is like, wee, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that was it. So a full-on voice video game was like, holy shit. I'm sure back then, a lot of people they overlooked a lot of that shit. Because they were like, dude, this game's fully voice acted. This is so cool. You're controlling the character and running around. You can do all this shit with like all the different types of guns, and you can have night vision goggles. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And for the time, it was nuts. So, and I mean, Cabbage, you had something to say about the gameplay earlier, so I think we should talk more about gameplay too here. So,
Sure. Yeah, so I'm more of a keyboard mouse player. So having to use a controller for this game was hard because I don't know any of the controls. I don't what do you mean R3? There's only two R but like on the so that was hard in its own way, and then the gameplay was not intuitive at all for me. Like I know I was stuck in that one part where you had to like blow up a hole in the wall. Like
Yeah.
there was not really any tutorials for it. And I remember my first one or two streams, I guess there were older gamers who obviously loved the game, and they came into my stream and they started like shitting on me. Like, how do you not know what to do? I'm like, bro,
what
first
the
of all,
hell?
this game is older than me. Also, I've never played this before. There is no like set tutorial, which I guess is what I'm used to playing like more modern games.
Right.
But once I learned the controls, it was fine. It was just a kind of a bigger learning curve. And it was also one of my first few encounters with a more meta game.
That was actually Liquid under a different name.
Ah, shit.
No, it was not. Oh, wait. And actually, now I'm thinking about, I mean, you're right. The game does not give you a tutorial. And then the game relies on you owning physical copy. I mean, remember with the codec. I mean, we're just looking at the back of the game.
Yeah.
You don't even, if you don't have the internet, which, I mean, everybody has it today, but back then, you didn't have the internet. It's like, how the hell am I going to figure this out? You'd have to buy a strategy guide or go buy a case.
Yeah. And the Mantis fight, too.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that speaks to the greater, what I think is one of the best accomplishments of this game, which was the way that they broke the fourth wall.
Yes.
Which I don't know of any other games really that did it before Metal Gear Solid. Maybe it did, but this is at least the most well known of all of them, I think. Even people who haven't played Metal Gear Solid are familiar with the way that they break the fourth wall. The fact that you had Meryl's frequency on the back of the case that you had to look at. The Psycho Mantis fight where you have to disconnect your controller, put it in the other controller slot, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And it reminded me a lot of, or I guess it influenced a lot of things down the line, I'm sure, in the form of, things like Deadpool, right? It's like Deadpool had the same sort of like fourth wall breaking moments in the film that, in a ton of other movies and games in the future as well. But it started here.
Yep. And I think that was really cool to see too, because it was again, going back to innovation. Back then, the PS1, it had a bunch of platformers and like fun games on it, but no one was innovating with the actual hardware yet. Metal Gear Solid was like, oh, I'm just going to make you like, I'm going to read all your data from the memory card and put it in a character and make you get confused as fuck because that's the hardware. But back then, no kid understood that. Like, I didn't understand. I was like, how the hell does it know I played Crash Bandicoot? How does it know that? I was blown away by it. And then the controller ports. You got to switch controller ports. It's just, it was innovating that platform. Yeah, sure, today it's like, what the hell? But back then it was like, holy shit, like, that is crazy that it registers like different ports and, you know, you can read the memory card data and all that crazy stuff. It was so cool to see back then.
Yeah, back then, leveraging the technology the way that they did was surprising and like you said, it was like mind-blowing for people who had never seen it happen before. But yeah, so obviously the fourth wall breaking is huge. Something that we still have not addressed here, which I think is probably the biggest part of the gameplay, is the stealth aspect of it.
Yes.
Right? I think that there was a whole genre of games that was defined over or after Metal Gear Solid. You had games like Tenchu, right? I think
that's
either right around the same time or right after it. Splinter Cell, obviously, that whole series that spawned, that were all based around some character and having to sneak around an environment with lots of bad guys, and also knowing what those bad guys can hear and see and that sort of thing. And this game was all based around that, which for me was the best part of this whole game.
Yes. Yeah, and it's funny because this is the only Metal Gear also, well, the only Metal Gear Solid where you can't beat the entire game without killing someone. Like, you have to kill someone. You have to kill a couple people. It's funny, they then realized, oh, well, they made it even better in the future, but like right here in the start of it all, it's cool to see where it was like, you can choose to choke that guy out, or you can choose to break his neck. You know, you can kill him with a SOCOM or whatever. And it's cool to see like all the different paths you can take. I mean, the AI, of course, the non-playable characters are so dumb. Yeah, like they see the footprints and they're like, what the heck? And then they're like, I'm just going to get back to it. It's just really funny. But at the time, that was super innovative. And it's actually, if you play on the hardest difficulty, they notice you way closer. Like they're, what am I thinking of?
Their field of vision?
Yes, it's way closer. So they just see you like immediately.
Further. So their field of vision is further.
Yeah. Yes, they can see further. Yes, that's what I meant. And so playing on that difficulty, it feels a little bit more realistic, but still at the end of the day, it's the AI's dumb, kind of. And they have the same path they kind of walk over and over again. But at the time, again, it was very innovative, and it changed games. I mean, this pretty much created the stealth genre, which is funny because we were just talking about another genre that this game came out around the same time that genre was created as well. I think Castlevania Symphony of the Night came out in 97. So that was a year before this. So the 90s were an era of genre creating video games, which is really cool to see.
That's true. And it makes sense, right? With the technology of the time. People were leveraging all the technology from, computers becoming a new thing, right? And then they were like, hey, instead of making spreadsheets, I'd like to do something cooler. And then so they started making video games, and then all of a sudden you had all this new technology coming out that was basically for businesses, and then it was getting leveraged to create video games, and then there was a market that got created out of it. And then the 90s was really like the sweet spot, or like for such a hot ticket item to come out with a bunch of content with people who had ideas that couldn't express those ideas before because they didn't have the proper medium.
Yep.
Right. So going back to the stealth gameplay, something that I thought was really cool that I don't know existed before this game, but it was the radar system.
Yeah.
Soliton radar, I think is what it was called. And that radar basically shows you the enemy's vision and their movement in your general vicinity. And I would say that probably like 75% of my time was spent playing the game, staring at that screen.
Yeah. You're playing Undertale.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm playing like a 3D game, but in reality, I'm playing the 2D dots that are up in the upper right-hand corner. I thought that radar was such a cool innovation that now we take for granted. You know, you play games like, especially first-person shooters or whatever, where it's a given you have to have a mini-map, and that mini-map has to show you where the enemies are. But back then, that was not the case, and the way that it was just so simple, and yet it communicated every bit of information that you needed to transverse through that stealth gameplay and get to your goal, right?
Yeah. And I think I remember using that a lot more this time than I remember using it. And it was when the last podcast where you pointed it out, and I was like, yeah, I actually did just stare at that damn thing a lot.
Yeah.
Like over and over again. Mainly because I was trying to beat the game without being seen. That didn't work. But I did try. And I think that's the only way you can with the radar system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because if you put the game on the hardest difficulty, that's gone.
Right.
That's not there anymore. So you really just rely on, well, maybe I'm close enough. Maybe I'm far enough way back. But yeah, that makes the game way, way harder when you don't have that. So that was definitely a cool feature that game had.
I don't even know why. I don't know. I don't think I would enjoy the game without the radar.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the point, right?
I think the point would be memorizing the game and then trying to go in.
The people who are playing on the hardest difficulty are not there to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
they're there to feel good about themselves.
Yeah. So unless anybody else has anything else on the gameplay, we'll move to the next thing.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, let's talk about the graphics and art direction, because I think that's a little harder to talk about because it is very old. But you kind of said it earlier, where it does look and feel like a spy movie, kind of.
Yeah, a lot of that I think is based around the fact that you're in a third person.
Yeah.
Right? The third person camera, I think was cool because at the time they were trying to leverage the 3D graphics that were new, right? The PlayStation was
No, Nintendo was.
Did N64 come out before?
Yeah.
PS1?
Damn, now
I don't think it
No,
did.
it didn't.
No.
Because PS1 came out and then they did 64-bit, basically.
Yes.
That's why it was, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but this game came out after 64 did their 96 Mario 64.
Okay.
That's why I was getting.
Yeah, that's fair. So, but the developers at the time, right? It was within a couple of years of the development of 3D graphics, right? And so it was within a couple of years of a lot of these developers learning how to use the 3D graphics, and so they were utilizing that through the third-person camera. And the funny thing about the game is that even though I can look at it and appreciate it, at the time of playing it, because it was so new to them, I don't think that they did a good job. Not that
what?
They
Exactly?
did all right. Let me clear this up. They did a good job with the amount of experience that they had at the time, because they could only, at maximum, have a couple of years of experience leveraging 3D graphics, right? But now, with what are we now? Almost 30 years, 25 years after the first 3D graphics game came out. It's crazy. But we've had 25 years to learn that system, learn that technology, and leverage the technology to the best of our ability, right?
Yeah.
Playing games now as frequently as we do, and then going back and playing a game that was like one of the first ones to utilize 3D graphics was such a disorienting and frustrating experience.
Yeah. No, I can see it. I can see it. You start to love it, though. You start to love it. Going back and forth to see where we are, but see where we came from. It's cool to see, kind of.
Did this come out before Resident Evil 1?
Resident Evil 1, I think, came out in 97, 96. Hold on, now I'm curious. I'm looking it up now.
Okay. Yeah, so it's funny because now that I'm looking back at it and I'm thinking, I had the same complaint about Resident Evil. The problem is that Resident Evil didn't fix it for a long time. But Resident Evil's
96.
style, 96? Okay.
Yeah.
Their style of put a camera in the corner of the room and then have the player control their character from that camera for the entirety of that, that level or whatever. Dude, nowadays, it sucks, man. Like, when you look back, or you get used to playing 3D third-person games now, and the way that they have figured out how to move the camera and give you better angles and make it feel fluid. It just like it's so disorienting. But I'm not mad at them. I'm not mad at them the way that I'm mad at their story. I'm more just like, you did your best, and I'm proud of you, but we're doing it a lot better now.
Yeah, I mean, well, and the way in my opinion, the way that the kind of graphics and we'll talk about the music later, but the way it all flows together, I think it actually creates a really cool atmosphere. I always wanted to keep moving forward and hearing the next song or seeing the next area and using all my tools, like, you know, that level where you're using the, I think it was the Nikita. I forget what gun it was, but you were using the rocket to guide it through the hallways to try to hit the, you know, to open the door or stop the poison or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we were doing?
Yeah.
Yes. So we were guiding it through there to kind of get through the area so you would like destroy the damn breakers or whatever. And I just like the way that the atmosphere is kind of created in those rooms and in all the different areas. And that has something to say about, you know, this game that came out in 98. But they were able to take that and use everything they had. So the wild looking graphics, but at the time looked amazing. And the music with the kind of color palette they chose, you know, it's very much a very gray game. It's very dark and like there's a lot of snow. So it's very gray. You're in a factory for most of the game, you know? I think the only part where you actually see trees is when you fight Sniper Wolf. So it's just cool to see. And even at Sniper Wolf, the trees don't have any green on them. So it's just, yeah. So it's awesome. And actually, now I'm thinking about it, I already forgot that Hal's in the game, and that was your favorite character, right? Hal Emmerich?
Who?
Hal Emmerich, you know, Otacon.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, for sure. I did not know him by that name.
That's his real name, Otacon's.
Yeah, no, that guy's my hero.
He's like pissed himself.
I will double down now, thank you.
Yeah. But no, I actually love the way this game looks. And they maintain that look all the way up to 3. Not the grays and all that, but that fixed camera with the way the characters are and stuff like that. They maintain that through 3, which I think really works for that series. Don't worry, there's third person in 3. But
I'm not mad at third person, by the way. I want to make that very clear. I think that third person's a really good camera style. The problem is that sometimes it can be very frustrating because you'll have a camera that's fixed in one location and it's, you know, some like views are blocked.
Yeah,
you don't have a good perspective of what's going on with your character, and so you're having to, like, I died multiple times, not just multiple. I'm like not on 2 hands, more than 2 hands. I died because the camera system was so clunky, which is fine. Like I said, I'm not mad at them for it. They were trying to leverage the technology with very little experience, and so they did a really good job of that. It's just that nowadays, as a person playing it at the time 2023,
right,
it could be frustrating. I mean, all right, so Cabbage, I think we talked about this on the first time around. As somebody who was born after this game came out, so I think probably will have you know, more hot take than mine. How did you feel about that?
I really did not like the fixed camera angles. It was very frustrating for me. I also had a similar, like, I would just die randomly because I couldn't see, like, what was in front of me. But I think someone suggested, like, I guess using the little binoculars or something to look forward and not, like, using the third person like that. That's a lot of work. I'd rather just die and be frustrated about it. So, but getting used to the angles, I'm not sure if I ever did. I think I just kind of fought through it. I'm like, well, if there's someone here, they'll die, I guess. I know we touched upon, like, the stealth aspect of the game. I am not a stealth player, like, at all. So I think I killed basically everyone that I saw.
Nice.
So, yeah, the artistic direction, obviously for the time, was really good. And I did like that it was, like, a cohesive, like, gray, because, you know, you're in a compound. It's the middle of winter. There are trees, but they're dead, you know?
Right.
It was a good overall atmosphere, and I like that it was consistent.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess we'll get into this in the sound design part, but the atmosphere of this game from not just the art direction, but just like overall, I think was really, really well done. They encompassed the feeling of being alone through the entire game very, very well. And the only contact that you had was through a radio system, right? And that because we haven't even talked about the radio system yet, which is a really
Codec
cool
is great.
innovation at the time. Yeah, the codec. And that makes you feel the fact that I guess what I'm trying to say is they found a way to give you guidance throughout the game while still while still making you feel isolated from everybody. That radio is a connection point for you to gain information that you need to go through the game, but it's not a good enough connection point to feel like you're not alone the entire time. Which is, I don't know, I really like games like that. Now I'm like looking back, I really like isolated feeling games for some reason.
Me too. I think that says something about our childhoods. But...
Maybe, yeah. Something like, it's like, I mean, just looking at the games that we've gone, hey, the kitty cat. Going over the game, sorry, so everybody's listening, kitty cat, big fluffy white and black kitty cat just went across Cabbage's death right for our camera. I mean, looking back, even the games that we've covered so far, Limbo, which is incredibly isolating.
Yes.
Celeste, again, a very isolating game.
And that's the theme.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This game, again, and then Obra Dinn after that is you on a boat. Well, we're going to talk about this, where this episode is going to come up after this one. But Obra Dinn, where you're on a boat by yourself, and you're like, the only contact you have with people are the dead people that or rather the scenes that where you see their death.
You're starting to disturb me. I mean,
it's kind of crazy, isn't it? Like, none of the games that we review are social, like built around social.
That's
aspects.
a good point. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm depressed now.
Yeah. Well,
bye.
But going back to what Cabbage was saying earlier about the first person, I think that the first person mode that they put into this game, or the ability to use first person in this game, was such a cool way of interacting with your environment. And at times you were forced to do it because you couldn't progress otherwise. Yeah.
And I think it's cool because a lot of these things that we didn't like or necessarily like jive with, I think the developers knew that even making the game in the time they made it in 98. Because with the binoculars, with the, the sniper rifles and stuff like that, which I think that's a really great example of when there's no way you're going to be using the fixed camera to fight Sniper Wolf, right? You have to use the sniper rifle, and you have to look for her and hide behind trees and stuff. You have no idea where she is. And I think that's cool to see, because it's almost like they thought of everything when they were making the game. They're like, okay, it's fixed cameras. Not everybody's going to like this, but let's give them a tool that they can use to, make it through those scenarios. So I like that.
Yeah, 100%. I'd say that while we're talking about art direction, I think the best part of this game, the most relatable part of this game, is the fact that Kojima is an ass man.
He is very much so an ass man, yes.
Yeah. God bless him.
The Meryl part.
Yeah, where she's running away.
How do you figure out? Oh my gosh, that's actually one of the best parts of the game. Is when you have to find Meryl and she's dressed up as everybody else. You just got to find the way she walks.
Yeah.
That shit had me dying, dude.
Yeah, I love the fact. I guess this is kind of a blend of the story and the art direction, but there had to have been at least 3 or 4 references to somebody's ass at some point in the game, along with a shortcut scene of said person's ass. So it was almost like, damn, I'm forgetting the director now.
Hideo Kojima?
No. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Once upon a Hollywood, Django
Tarantino.
Yeah, it's Quentin Tarantino. It's like Quentin Tarantino and feet, right?
Yeah,
like every Tarantino movie is going to have some shot of some woman's feet in it. Every game that Hideo Kojima does is going to have a shot of someone's ass in it.
It's got a good ass shot.
Which, hey, I'm not mad at him.
I'm not complaining. I like Meryl.
Yeah, so if nobody has anything else on the graphics, then we'll move to the music.
Well, and yeah, I think that's a good transition anyway, because music plays a big part in atmosphere.
100%. Yeah, and so I'll start. So like I said earlier, the audio design in the game I thought was phenomenal, and the fact that they use music infrequently enough that when they do have music, you notice it.
Yes.
And it's like a movie, right? Where a lot of the times, if there's dialogue or there's certain scenes, I don't want any music at all because I want to be fully engrossed in what's going on.
Yeah.
But then there are times where you should bring in a score and it will elevate the experience rather than detract from it. And I think that the way that they did this game was perfect. There were times where I can remember running through, like, being outside where it's snowy, you know, and if you've ever experienced snow, you know that there's a weird, eerie silence when it's snowing. It's quieter than it ever is. I don't know why. Maybe it's because like snow muffles sound through the air better or something like that. But when you stand outside and it's quietly snowing, there's almost never been a quiet so quiet.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I don't want music. Don't give me music. Don't give me a bunch of environmental sounds. I want to just hear the sounds of my footsteps. And
And
that's
you
what
do.
they did.
Yes, it's awesome. Well, that, and I mean, this game just created a lot of, like, and not just the music, but the sounds. Like with the codec, right? That's just a signature sound. Everybody who's a gamer knows the codec, even if you've never played Metal Gear.
Yeah.
Did you guys know what the codec sound before you played Metal Gear?
Yeah, 100%.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's crazy. You didn't? Or you
I'm
did?
not sure. I know the exclamation point, like
That one,
like
yes.
that
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
That one for sure.
That's
Yeah.
got to be one of the most iconic sounds.
Yes,
in
the alert
gaming,
sound.
like,
Yeah.
Mm.
maybe even outside of gaming and like just media specifically.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good.
Everybody's had that as their ringtone at some point. Like
Or a text.
like a text message. Yeah.
Yes. I knew people who had it as their text message and never played Metal Gear. And I used to, because I was a little elitist, I used to get so mad. I'd be like, what the hell? You know what I mean?
You don't deserve that ringtone.
Yeah. Why don't you go play the game? Piece of shit.
Dude, that sound gave me a heart attack every time it happened.
Yes.
Especially because they leveraged silence so many times in that game. And then you wouldn't be expecting I don't know, you walk through a door or something and not expect a camera to be there or whatever. And then you walk there, just
Yep.
goes off. It's like, fuck.
I will say that was because of the sound design, the way that they do all the sounds and stuff. When I was a kid, this game actually used to give me like serious anxiety.
I believe it.
I'd be like, I would be so scared to go into the next room and stuff. I remember that. Not because it felt like horror, but it was like, maybe I'm going to end up in a situation I don't want to be in. And I remember that causing serious anxiety. And so, and yeah, like the sound in general, just, I mean, it's very much relied on sound in the boss fights and stuff too, which I thought was cool. I mean, with the way you're hearing Vulcan Raven, you can hear him around the corners and stuff, and Sniper Wolf as well. You can hear like loading her gun. It's so cool. All the little sounds in the boss fights.
I wonder if that only works when you're playing with headphones. I mean, it's got to, right? Because back in the day, we were playing with stereo at best.
Right.
And even then, it was basically center because they're both coming from the console.
Yeah. Well, if I
That's the
remember
TV.
correctly, I think more so in this game, it's not necessarily like where they're at as far as like hearing in the left ear or the right ear, but knowing they're close.
Oh, yeah.
You know, or knowing what they're doing, but you don't know where they are. Like Sniper Wolf's loading the gun. You know she's loading the gun. Now you got to figure out, oh, I better get behind this fucking tree real quick.
Right.
And I think that's cool, the way they use the audio design there. And yeah, of a thing that's funny about Metal Gear Solid, this one is that a lot of the games, most of the games in the entire series are composed by Harry Gregson Williams, which is an American composer. This game's actually composed like by 7 different Japanese composers. So it's like all over the place, but they did a really good job all coming together to make this game work, and they did it really well. I think if you listen to the soundtracks of all the games, you wouldn't be able to tell that this was separate from the other 3. They all sound very much alike in a way. And
Yes.
it's very spy.
And they're not usually songs. Most of the time, it's like a soundscape, which is tough to do because soundscapes don't have like I said, an order, right? Or like is a standard song, as intro, intro, verse, chorus, verse 2, chorus, verse 3, outro.
Yep.
Right. And so it's not easy to write songs, but it's much harder, I think, to write a soundscape because you're doing it to a specific atmosphere, which is different from writing a song because you're trying to express an emotion or something.
Yeah.
You know, those things I think come a little bit more naturally where it's kind of funny because we use the word contrived in a negative way most of the time, where we say, oh, well, that's contrived, as in you didn't make that from the heart. You just made it because people wanted you to make it or something, right? But that's what you have to do for a soundscape, right? You don't get to decide what this thing is. You have to make it to some sort of a formula, essentially.
Yep.
But it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no doubt.
But it encapsulates, like we were talking about earlier, the fact that this is less of a game and more of a cinematic experience. And I guess the cinematic experience is heightened through soundscapes versus songs.
Yes. And you saying that, like the cinematic experience, I think that this game did it well because I think along the path forward, a lot of studios lost that understanding of what a cinematic game can be, but also still maintain being a video game. Because like some of these games have become so much like movies that they're not even trying to be a game anymore. Like look at Until Dawn, right? You walk around and click shit. It's not really a video game. It's just an interactive experience.
I mean, Kojima is basically the king of that, right?
Yes.
Silent Hill, same thing, all that whole series.
But he created gameplay out of it. Like he gave you good gameplay too, like a good game.
Yeah.
Some of these studios just don't even give you that. They're just like, here's a game that you just talk through.
Yeah.
And I've never been a fan. Well, I was a fan of that at the beginning, but I think that's just because I like movies. Then I started realizing, well, there's a separation here. I need a separation. I don't want those type of games. I want games that also have good stories. And I think Metal Gear is the perfect mix.
So speaking of speaking a lot, which this game does, they speak a lot.
Yes.
And in fact, I found myself a lot of the times just like X, just trying to like get through it because I was like, man, I'm going to be here for like 3 hours listening to them or like waiting for the voice actors to go through, which is fine.
Are you saying you skip dialogue?
I didn't skip the dialogue. I read the dialogue rather than waiting for it to be voice acted, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, I spent a lot of time in dialogue screens in the codec. But the voice acting specifically. So this is a question directly for you, the Metal Gear expert in the room. Did they originally record this in English?
Yeah. So the game's recorded in Japanese, but then Kojima went out of his way to kind of look for people he thought would match the characters.
Okay. So I'm curious if the Japanese recordings, if you can get if you can get Metal Gear Solid with the original Japanese voice actors, right? Are you sure of that?
Yes.
Okay. So if you can get the game with the original Japanese voice actors, if it will feel less like a joke than this game does in English, because this suffers from the same fate that every other piece of media that gets translated into English suffers.
Anime? I try to tell people all the time.
Yes, anime dubs over just like
horrible
K-dramas or whatever, right? It is horrible. Now, I don't want to say that the voice actors in this game were horrible. I think they did a pretty decent job, but a lot of it felt so kitschy or like I couldn't tell whether it was part of Kojima's plan to try to bring that levity, right, that he's known for.
Yeah.
Because the voice actor who does Solid Snake,
David Hayter,
is that his name?
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of it is the script, right? He couldn't go off script, so he had to follow the script itself, and maybe the script was just kind of written to feel like it's a joke,
right?
But just constantly repeating stuff in in his voice, you know?
Metal Gear.
Yeah. It's a joke. Everybody knows that part of it, right? And if you talk to anybody about Metal Gear Solid, that's going to be one of the main points that they talk about is how funny the voice acting is and how funny the script is.
Yeah. And I think he gets better with time.
Yeah.
For that character. I definitely, when I listened to Metal Gear Solid, replaying it for this podcast, definitely made me realize it a little bit more, where I was like, oh man, I miss I miss David Hayter in Metal Gear Solid 3, you know? Because this is definitely his first, obviously his first go at Solid Snake, and some of it's really funny, just the way because he doesn't have his graspiness gets worse, but in a good way.
Okay.
Because in this game, it's like it's almost not graspy enough, and so it comes off as kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
But I think I said this last time we recorded. This is a problem with just translation in general. Like anime, I always tell people, hey, if you're going to watch this for the first time, try to watch it, you know, in its original native language. Not because I'm like all about Japanese stuff. I do like Japanese stuff. He's going to say something. But
I'm going to leave that one alone.
But I think that any kind of entertainment should be experienced from where it came from. So the way it was made in the beginning. Like, for instance, you're not going to watch Squid Games in English, or actually people did, which was wild to me. But there's a lot of things, like if you're going to watch a South Korean film, you shouldn't watch it in English. It's going to be in Korean. And you think that, you know, I always tell people this. You think that the Japanese watch Avengers in Japanese? They're watching it in English with subtitles.
Yeah.
I think America is one of the only places on the planet that we're too lazy to just read. So it's depressing, kind of.
Yeah.
And so Kojima's, though, his thing is that he's always been into American cinema, and he liked spy movies from America. So this game they tried to put a lot of love and care into the English voice acting. This is why Death Stranding and Metal Gear Solid 5 are all recorded in English and then dubbed in Japanese, because he's obsessed with American like entertainment. And so it eventually became that. But it's so Japanese, especially the first game, that it's almost doesn't work. It's like, what the hell? So I'd actually be curious. I think I watched a little bit of videos on YouTube a couple of times about this game in Japanese, because the voice actor has been the voice actor since the beginning. So, and I think I do remember it being a little more, the atmosphere felt even cooler. You were like, oh, this is cool as hell. But
yeah, I guess this leads to the main and only question that this entire podcast is written around, which is asking Cabbage, subs or dubs?
Well, I watch things subtitled.
oh shit!
All right, she's a real one.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're good. I've always, anytime I ask somebody that, a lot of the time it's almost like they already go into defensive mode. They're trying to defend themselves, and they always say, well, I only watch it dubbed because I'm eating and I'm watching TV. You know what I mean? That's always the go-to.
Honestly, that's a fair point.
Yeah. So, and I get that, but there's so much shit you can watch in English.
It's so unenjoyable for me to I know we sound like elitist cunts saying,
which is funny coming from you. I don't know why, but I'm surprised.
No, I am too. Well, I used to give people shit for being like a subs not dubs kind of person, but then I started watching like K-dramas or like Squid Games was a good example of that, or Squid Game was a good example of that, where I tried to watch it with dubs, and it was the first time I really noticed that it is just, the experience is completely different. And I would rather watch something else in English.
I fucked.
Are you
up.
good?
No.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so the experience was completely different. I would rather watch something in... Did you just spill your Red Bull?
No.
Okay, this is falling apart.
I'm trying to adjust my mic.
We'll start over. Round 3. Yeah, from the top. So, yeah, I would rather watch something in English that doesn't require a whole lot of attention, because I am one of those people who likes to watch something while I eat dinner.
Yes. Seinfeld.
Like Seinfeld or whatever, right? Something where I can like look down at my food and still keep up with what the story or whatever's going on. But then as soon as I'm done eating, I put that down and then I change back to whatever requires the subtitles, and I go straight into that. I watch everything with subtitles anyway, so it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, same. And so I mean, now I'm curious to play Metal. It's hard to do because you can't get the game with Metal Gear with Japanese sub and English like subtitles.
Oh, Japanese.
I'm sure there's a mod. Or sorry, Japanese dub.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's like a mod that you can do where you can do that. But I have never tried that because all my copies of Metal Gear are owned on home consoles, so I'm locked to the way that I own it.
Mm.
But a part of the David Hayter voice acting and all that is nostalgia. A lot of people love that character because of David Hayter, because we grew up with it.
Yeah, I'm not mad at him. Honestly, if it was somebody else,
Mei Ling, who that shit was on another level.
yeah,
It sounded racist. I mean,
it did. It felt racist for sure.
It's
So
an actual like Asian lady.
oh, did you look it up?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I was curious too. I was like, was it? I hope it was.
It actually is.
Okay, good.
yeah, so I think that most of the characters were voiced really well, actually. Although I think a lot of the script was cheesy.
Yeah,
Going back to like the story plus the script, it all kind of played together to feel a bit cheesy, which might have been intentional by Kojima, because Kojima likes to wrap kind of serious concepts into a cheesy package at times. And sometimes he takes a very serious concept and wraps it in the most horrifying thing you've ever seen in your life. But he does both
Yes.
very well. And so it's hard to tell, but I know that, or at least my opinion, is that Solid Snake specifically was really not bad. It's not bad. It's just like, it's memorable because of how corny it is.
what are you saying?
Trying to remember the what's another one that you would say all the time?
Huh?
D.
No, he just said that once, believe it or not. Behind D, what's a Russian gunship doing here? No, you always say,
Yeah. Yeah, which again could just be script. You know?
yeah.
But looking back at it, or rather experiencing it now after having known that most people view the voice acting as kind of a memeable thing,
Yeah.
I totally get what they're saying. You know,
I do too, believe it or not. I mean, I agree with you.
the rest of them, again, like you said, Mei Ling is a great example of somebody who I think was just done great from start to finish.
Yeah. Or no, I was saying Mei Ling not good.
Really?
I thought it sounded cheesy and horrible.
Really?
Mei Ling was, I think Meryl was done really well.
That's so funny. I'm like the opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought, well, I guess Meryl was okay. Really, the worst, not the worst voice actors, but the cheesiest
I already
voice
think I know who you're going to say.
actors were really just, well, they were the men. All the men, I
Deep
think.
Throat.
Which one?
Cyborg Ninja.
Oh, yeah.
His was so bad. Frank Yeager. He's got a lot of names, but
I mean, him, the commander that you're working for, all of them. It felt like it was over, like they were overacting
yeah.
to try to. It almost felt. That's a good word for it. Like a trope,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
It felt like most of those characters were done specifically as a trope, almost like they were done by a Japanese guy who only experienced American culture through movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No doubt.
So I'm not mad at him, and I'm glad it happened because now it's a fun thing to laugh about.
Yeah.
You know? And it's cool to experience it in today's, I don't know, after seeing so many voice acting over the course of, you know, my experiences in media and that sort of thing. I'm glad that exists because it's fun.
Yeah. And I don't think this would ever be a game that anyone regretted playing through.
Definitely not.
You know what I mean? Even if you had a hard time playing it, it's not, it's an experience to say
Yeah.
the least.
Yeah, so I guess to wrap it all with a bow for myself, I think I said this the first time around too. And it's funny because it's kind of coming naturally to me. And so that
Nice.
kind of tells me that I think I'm at the same place that I was before.
Yeah.
I know it seems like I'm shitting a lot on this game. I'm mostly trying to balance your love for it to try to bring us to some sort of a middle ground.
Sure.
Because your love for the Metal Gear franchise is like over the top. Like not over the top. It's the right amount for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
To me, it's my Star Wars. You know, a lot of people love Star Wars. This is my Star
that's the
Wars.
perfect way to describe it.
Yep.
Some people obsess over certain things, over different franchises. You obsess over Metal Gear. And so for me, coming into it to try to strike a balance, I feel like I have to stay on the negative side of it to try to make it feel like we're not circle jerking the entire time.
Oh, for sure.
With that said, I shit on it a lot over the past hour, but I will say that every time I got home, I was excited to jump back on my computer to play it again.
Yeah.
and I like kept wanting to go because I kept wanting to see what was next, and I was having such a good time playing. Whether it's a well-made game, quote unquote, where is it a masterpiece of voice acting and gameplay and art direction? I don't know. But the one metric that I normally judge a game off of is, was I excited to play it the next time that I played it? And the answer was always yes.
Yep. And I have a lot of games today that I don't do that with.
100%.
I force myself through a lot of games. It sucks.
Yep.
But I'm bad at quitting things. I start something, just like you said earlier, Cabbage. If you start something, you got to finish it. That's the way I live. I got to do it. And I've been doing that a lot lately. I'm trying to get better. But no, with closing comments, I have a lot of just random questions for you guys. So one of the questions was that I was thinking of, I wrote this down. Did you feel like some of the subplots distracted you from the main story? Or not necessarily distracted you, but did you feel like some of them didn't make any sense? Like, for instance, Cyborg Ninja's subplot with the whole Zanzibar land and all that shit. I mean, I'm sure that none of that, or some of that was a struggle, but did that distract you guys from the main plot?
No, I don't think so. It struck me as like, okay, I think they'll delve into this in another game, which they probably do, maybe. But going into it with no knowledge at all, I was like, okay, this feels like obviously like part 1 to a trilogy or quad trilogy.
Yeah.
Again, the only thing I think that distracted me was like, why are we kissing Meryl?
Yeah.
Everything else, like all of the other like small villains, or they have their little intros. I did enjoy Sniper Wolf's backstory. I thought that was really well done and thought out. I don't think anything like detracted from
Yeah.
the story.
Yeah, and with you saying that, it made me think of that. I remember last time we recorded this, I compared the defeating the villains to Demon Slayer, how you almost feel bad for some of the characters in their past. And I still stand by that. Actually, I didn't think about it until you just said that. But yeah, it's every time you beat one of them, they tell their backstory of why they were doing what they were doing, or why they were a part of Foxhound, or any of that. And it was just kind of depressing. I thought Psycho Mantis's was pretty depressing. So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that I found the subplots distracting. At first, I found them confusing. I didn't find them distracting. I'm surprised we haven't even talked about this yet. The character design was phenomenal.
Yes.
The way that I'm flashing back to the first time we talked about this.
Yeah.
Because it's the same exact thing as Demon Slayer, where every villain has a backstory to them and a depth and a cool design that's just all so memorable.
Yes.
Like most games, if you ask about some specific character somewhere in the game, and I haven't played it in the last like 6 months, I'm gonna have trouble remembering who you're talking about.
Yep.
But as soon as you say like Psycho Mantis or Vulcan Raven, Sniper Wolf, when you say those names, I immediately know exactly who you're talking about. I remember what they look like. I remember what the battles were like.
Yep.
Or the fights were like. And so the character design is super, super well done, really memorable. I think that's one of the highlights of this game.
Yes. And it's funny because that was another question I have for you guys. So that led into it perfectly. Was what was your favorite boss fight in the game?
Mine was probably the Raven guy, the one where you're like in a cold.
Oh, so his second fight, or the first one where you have to fight him in the tank?
The second fight.
Oh, right.
Second fight.
Right. Because cold room.
But that's because for me, I kind of cheesed it. I don't know if you're supposed to put mines everywhere, but I did. I just like ran around.
That's why I
just blowing him up. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it was fun. I enjoyed that, and it was a different type of gameplay rather than just like, oh, just shoot this person. Sniper Wolf's was fine. It was a little tedious just because she would run and hide every time.
Yeah.
So, I guess we had the same.
She's definitely my second favorite as well. So,
man, I'm trying to think. I'll tell you my least favorite. My least favorite was fighting the other snake.
That's my favorite.
Are you okay? As soon as you said that sentence, I flashed back to the first time we talked about this, and being like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That whole sequence was so cancerous. I would never want to do it again. I think I probably died to him between 60 and 80 times. I think every death I had was probably to him.
It takes a while to get used to that fight.
Dude, that fight is so clunky and it feels so bad. And the fist fighting thing and the trying to dodge it, it's just like, ugh, it was, I don't know.
I think I like it because a lot of my favorite things from the 90s and even the 80s always revolved around like two people going at it, and that's the final conclusion to something. Like two people just going toe to toe,
mano a mano.
Yeah, it's just hand to hand combat. I loved it. Like the atmosphere of that fight. It goes back to atmosphere, the music of that fight, the way he's kind of has this monologue right before you just whoop his ass. You're trying to save Meryl's life. There's a lot going on in that fight, and I think that's why I loved it so much, because it's not just the gameplay, which I know can be frustrating, but it was everything surrounding that fight. It was just like the final showdown. You know what I mean? It was just good.
That makes total sense. I think in context, that boss fight is great. In practice, it sucks. There's so many good like fighting sequences and games, or like games that have fighting mechanics built in, but the fact of the matter is Metal Gear Solid is not one of those games. Fighting feels clunky. The 3D space that you have to play in feels weird, and like you're constantly missing because you can't really tell where your character is because your depth perception is weird.
Right.
It's just like there's a lot of things that are off, but yeah. I get what you're saying. Again, it seems like I'm shitting on it. It's just that specific boss fight was so frustrating for me.
Yeah.
As far as my favorite, it's kind of it's stereotypical and cheap, but the Psycho Mantis fight I think was the best for me.
That's got to be one of the most legendary boss fights in
it is, right? And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like that was my favorite part of the game.
Yeah,
basically, or at least my favorite boss fight, even though I feel like I'm jumping on a bandwagon.
Right.
Actually,
no, I mean, everybody's gonna have that favorite boss fight. You can't fight that. Everybody's got the same favorite boss fight in Elden Ring.
I wish I would have gotten to experience it as a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
With like an actual console and him responding to me in certain ways, because like
yeah,
that would have been so mind melting for me that that would have cemented that boss fight into my brain for the rest of my life.
Yep.
I got to experience it in a different way this time, which is funny because I actually did have to do some different.
Because you're playing PC, right?
Yeah, I was playing on PC, like a PC port version of the game, so I had to switch to using the keyboard.
Yeah.
I was using my controller, which took me it took me longer than a minute to figure out, because then you don't get to that point until later in the fight, right? And so like it took me a little bit to get to that point in the fight, and then once that point came along, I was like, shit, I don't know what to do. I die, and then I have to get back to that point and then keep doing that and figuring out how to get how to move forward.
Yeah.
And so I get to experience a little bit of that, but man, if he would have been like, oh, so you like Castlevania, I would have been like, holy shit, this game is on a different level.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I mean, even me coming back to this game after many, many years of not playing it, I had forgotten what to do at certain points in that boss fight. Like the fact that you had to switch your controller port to even do damage. I forgot that for a while. I remember there was something to do with the controller port, but I thought it was just I forget what I thought it was for, but I didn't think it was for damage. And I couldn't figure that out for a while, and I kept.
Maybe that's what it was. Okay, yeah, it's not a specific point in the fight. It's actually like at the beginning you have to switch over. But I did it over and over and over, like trying to do damage to him, and couldn't figure that out. Yeah, I died multiple times trying to get to the point of figuring out that I had to switch to using my keyboard.
Yeah, Cabbage, did you, for that part? I assume you probably asked chat for help, or did you just figure it out? I mean,
I figured it out, but I don't think I did it correctly the first time. I was like, okay. Well, it was a little easier for me to figure out because I started playing the game on mouse and keyboard.
Right.
And then I was like, wow, this is really hard. So I guess I'll put it to controller. And then when I got to that, I was like, oh, well, the only other way I can play this is with mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, because you played the GOG version, right? The GOG version?
Yeah.
Yep. That's what you played too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I didn't have any of those problems just because I was emulating the PS1 version on my Steam Deck.
Okay.
So all I had to do was go into the options and change my port.
Mm-hmm.
which was fairly simple. But yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, that boss fight will always be in my head for the rest of my life, I think. There's some other fights later down and in some other video games that I think about, but that's one of them that's always in the top list, top 10 of just most innovative too. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny you said that thing earlier, Cabbage, about the about maybe this is in another game. All the stuff with Cyborg Ninja is part of Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2, which nobody played. Those games didn't sell very well, and they were both on MSX2 computers, so nobody ever played them.
Plus, they're old, and old games are yucky.
Yeah, 87, that's old, yeah.
You.
I love old games.
I know you do. That's why I said that.
But yeah, I think that pretty much covers all of MGS, unless you guys think of anything else.
I mean, it doesn't cover all of it.
Well,
right?
True.
But within the time script they were trying to maintain, I think we hit the highlights at least. I mean, obviously, if you're interested in the game, or if this gets you interested at all, you should go play it, because there are so many levels to this game that we didn't cover. Not levels, but like different layers to this game, basically, that we didn't cover here.
You need a 4-hour script to kind of cover the entirety.
Bro, you need a longer script than that to try to make sense of the storyline. Yeah, it's going to take us at least a few of those hours.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, you should go and you should play it yourself to see where this genre of game came from. You know, there's so many games now that rely on stealth. I mean, even just we've talked about Last of Us so many times because Last of Us is such a good example. But it's the same thing, right? It's even you can go from Metal Gear Solid and then draw a direct path all the way to The Last of Us,
100%,
which was like an absolute masterpiece of a game that was only I guess maybe something else could have influenced it, right? But specifically was influenced by that genre that Metal Gear Solid defined.
Yeah,
from the very beginning.
Yes, and now it's one of the greats.
It's one of the greats, and in order to really appreciate, I think, in my opinion, the games nowadays that rely on that genre, you should go back and play the originals. Yeah. And the original is Metal Gear Solid.
Yep. 10 out of 10.
Did we want to share our scores that we got at the end?
Oh, yeah.
I think we sent our screenshots.
Oh, man, now I got to go back in my...
I actually... I was about to
it's
ask
in
if that's still in there.
Yeah, it's in the book.
Nice. Okay. Oh, yeah, because I think we couldn't find it at the time, and so we like went back and shared it with each other.
Yeah.
Okay, now we can share it.
I see it right here. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll go in order. So, Cabbage, you go first. I see yours is on there first.
Okay. I think we all played on the normal difficulty.
Yep.
I took 13.5 hours. I saved 31 times. I guess I died 97 times. Yep. I was found 56 times. I killed 240 people. And I used 153 rations.
Fucking savage.
I'm just comparing, and I don't even remember this. Yeah, that's a shit ton.
The code I got was elephant.
Yeah, elephant.
Yeah, that's right. Man, I thought that I had killed a lot of people. I don't remember seeing like these side by side.
Yeah, I don't either.
Cabbage was not fucking around.
So I played on normal as well. I played the game for 14 and a half hours. I saved 20 times. I continued 68 times. I was found 46 times. I tried to keep it at 0, but look at that shit. Enemies, I killed 93, which I don't do. I'm telling you right now, I'm confused by that. I actually didn't really kill anyone that I know of. I guess it was counting the people on that stairwell.
Yeah, you're forced to kill them.
Yeah. And then rations, I used 90. And my code name, Hyena. I got the special item, which I think we all got. Yeah, we all got banana.
You know what's really funny is that I felt like I did not play this game very stealthy. I thought I'm the same way as Cabbage. I normally go into stealth games being like, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
And I just kind of go for it. But you tried to play it stealthy. You got found 46 times and I got found 21 times.
I see that. Yeah, you were doing something right.
So I played on normal. My playtime was about 11 hours. So we were, I guess, all around the same. I guess I was just like speed running a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know how you moved so quick.
Again,
I want to get this shit over with.
It's probably because I didn't fucking sit around and listen to all the dialogue. I was just like,
that's true.
Skip. Yeah, so playtime was about 11 hours. I saved 28 times, so it looks like we were all around the same save times. Continued 67. So I guess you and I had about the same deaths at Liquid. And then found 21 times. I'm real sneaky. Enemies killed 128. So I'm somewhere like right between, well, I'm half of Cabbage. And then I guess you're about 75% of mine. So yeah, you definitely went into, I didn't. So the funny thing is, I think we talked about this first time. Forget about this. I didn't know that you could choke people out.
Oh yeah, that's right. You didn't.
I had no idea. I thought it was just like you grab them, you break their neck. That's it. So
I think you are breaking their neck. Maybe that's why it counted all those kills.
Oh, maybe it is. Well, there's a way that you can like put them to sleep, and there's another way that you like keep like hitting the button, and it like breaks their neck.
Yeah. I think honestly, I think the only way to put them to sleep in Metal Gear Solid is to keep throwing them down until they pass out. You like grab them and throw them.
So rations for me was 90 used, which is the same exact number as Liquid. Which I don't even know. Cabbage, how did you get 153 rations? I feel like I was like trying to find as many rations as I could.
Well, I also died like what, maybe 30 more times than you guys.
Oh, maybe. Okay, that
I
makes
think it
sense.
reset there.
Okay, so it counts it every time you used it, not just in like the successful runs, I guess. And then my code name was Leopard.
I think it's cool. We all got different code names too.
I don't know. We talked about it last time, and I shared a chart with you guys, but that doesn't seem to be accurate at all.
Yeah, the codename chart. I looked at that too, and I was confused. But I just know that the highest one is like beating the game with the minimum kills that you have to do, not being caught at all. There's like so many requirements. I think it's called like Big Boss or something. I can't remember, or maybe I'm thinking of another one. But
that sounds right.
I want to get that one day. I probably never will.
You've only had like 25 years to do it, so.
True. A code name. Okay, here we go. Big Boss is the highest one, yeah. But it doesn't make any sense.
No, they don't make any sense. Don't try to make any sense of them. Again, people have been trying to make sense of them for like 25 years, and then the one that I found where everyone was like, this is it. I looked at it, and I looked at our data, and I was like, this is not even close.
Yeah.
These are just like totally random.
Yeah, what the hell? Oh, I think we were looking at the wrong one. Sorry, I'm scrolling through here. I think I just found it. Metal Gear. No, that's 3.
I thought mine was Elephant just because I ate so many rations.
That might be so. That's 2. Okay, I think I'm pretty close here. Hold on.
Mine was Leopard. Yours was Hyena. I don't even know what those would refer to.
Okay, here's the Big Boss. You have to get alerted 4 times or less, so only seen 4 times. You have to have under 25 kills. You can only use 1 ration.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and you have to beat the game in 3 hours or less. Yeah.
Again, those people are not playing it for fun.
No, and you have to be on extreme difficulty, which is even more ridiculous. I'm looking for ours right now. Let's see. Whatever first one I see. Where the hell? Oh, there's Hyena. It's a bunch of code. I'm not reading it. Never mind. What the hell?
We tried to make sense of it before. It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to make sense now. That's cool. I'm cool with Leopard. Leopard's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm a hyena. Makes me think of Lion King, but whatever. Elephant.
I'm just huge.
I'm looking forward to playing more Metal Gear games.
Yeah. And like I said last time, before we wrap it up, I think it would be cool, not necessarily like right back to back, because clearly this took a while to get like finished, especially because we had to do it twice. But I think in the future we could just tackle them as we go and release those episodes. Like clearly we're going to do other games within there. And Cabbage, if you ever want to be a part of like a game we're doing, I'll announce it in the podcast stuff. And if you're like, hey, I'd be really interested in that, just let me know. Okay. But the Metal Gear stuff, we can kind of stay as the same group and keep doing them in the future.
Yeah,
so
I'm down.
Because there's some crazy shit that comes on.
Well, Cabbage, I really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you're welcome. So as far as your content goes,
Mhm.
you stream on Twitch, which is, and we will
Yep.
copy the link into the podcast description and wherever we post this for your Twitch. Is there anywhere else where people can find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter as well. Instagram is the same handle, just babykyabetsu.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we'll put those down in the description as well, and everyone should go check out her content.
Hell yeah. I'm bad about it anyway. I barely watch any content anymore anyway, so Cabbage, you can hit me.
I won't do that, but it's okay.
Well, Liquid, I guess we have to announce the next.
Oh, right, the next game that's already done that we also need to record.
Right, yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was my privilege for this next upcoming episode to pick the game that we were both going to play. And so we're going to be doing Return of the Obra Dinn, which is a game that came out in 2018. And it's almost always on sale on Steam. So if anybody's interested in it and listens to this before they go listen to the next one, go pick it up and go play it, so that you can kind of follow along and agree or disagree with us. But yeah,
Well, it might be both very opposite. Who knows?
yeah, that's true. I'm really excited to hear your opinion on it now that you've already played it.
Yes, I played the hell out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I've got some stuff up my sleeve. Both those episodes are going to be released at the same time. Hopefully I can get this tackled before the 28th because I'm leaving for a month. So
Yep.
I will do my best. I promise this time it won't get lost in history. I swear it this time. I swear it. We're actually putting it on a USB right before I even leave right now so that it doesn't get lost. There's no way this shit's happening again. So, but yeah, with that being said, I think this is it. So love y'all and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.